Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of How to Paint. Today we're painting Wicket and Logray from Star Wars Legion. If you do enjoy this content, as always, please like and subscribe and comment. It does help me out. So without further ado, let's get started. To begin with, I've assembled the miniatures, and I'm just hitting them with a black prime. And now I'm taking a white primer and I'm just applying it from 45 degrees overhead. I'm going to begin on Wicket here, and I'm going to use Rinox hide for all of his main body fur. And now I'm switching to Mournfang brown, and I'm just applying this loosely to his knees, belly, and the top of his arms. Now I'm switching out to XV88, and I'm mainly applying this to his belly, his face, and the top of his arms. Here I'm using Zandri dust, and I'm applying this to a smaller area of his belly and his cheeks and chin. I'm going to use Deck Tan, and I'm applying this as a bit of a highlight to his belly. I'm starting to switch out to much more shorter, sporadic paint strokes here to kind of emulate the fur. And I'm also making sure to get his ears. Here I'm using coal black, and I'm applying this to his toes and his fingers. And I'm carefully getting his eyes, his nose, and his lips. And with bold titanium white here, I'm just gently getting his teeth. I'm going to switch over to Baneblade brown here, and I'm using this for his toes and fingers. I'm also switching over to Deck Tan again, just to tidy up some areas of the face and to help reinforce some of the white on his belly. Now I'm using some Trollslayer orange, and I'm mixing this with some of the XV88. I'm applying this to his headscarf here, just getting even coverage all the way around. And I'm switching over to dark wood speed paint, and I'm going to use this as a bit of a wash here. And you can kind of see that it's toning down some of that orange and making it more of an orange brown. And I'm using some of that orange mix again, just to help highlight that back up. And for the most extreme highlights, I'm using some of the Deck Tan with that orange mix. The last thing I'm going to do here is use some Rinox hide just for his detail on the top of his head. Now I'm going to use Sand Golem, and here I'm going to apply this to his spear handle. I'm using some XV88 here to detail some of the straps, highlighting that with some deck tan. And I'm going to use some Gravelord Grey here for the tip of the spear. And while this is still wet, I'm going to use some Uniform Grey and kind of blotch on some rough highlights. And lastly, build up to a bright white. Next I'm using some Vallejo earth texture, and I'm going to apply this quite thickly to the base. And while I'm at it, I'm doing this on Logray's base as well. Now I'm using some hardened leather, and I'm just applying this to the underside of the branch. And while the paint is still wet, I'm now using Camo Cloak and some Speedpaint Medium, and I'm applying this to the top side of the branch. And then I'm using my brush here just to help blend the two colors together. The nice thing about these speed paints is that if they dry too quickly, with a little bit of medium and some pressure you can reactivate them. Now that the Vallejo earth texture is dry, I'm using some dark wood speed paint to help add some definition to it. And I'm mirroring this on Logray's base as well. Okay, so now for Logray, I'm starting off with his fur being a deck tan. And I'm just carefully getting his eyes with some of the black. And tidying up any mistakes with the deck tan again. I'm using XV88 here for his markings. And I'm switching over to black again for his toes and fingers. I'm using Bugman's Glow here, and I'm using this to highlight his toes, his hands, and his facial features. I'm using the Darkwood speed paint here for his headdress. And the hardened leather for the bag. I'm doing the same thing as I did on Wicket's spear. I'm using sand golem for the staff. And I've decided on deck tan again for the skull on his head. I'm prepping some of the feathers here with some deck tan. I'm using grim black for the feathers on the top of the skull. And once more with the deck tan on the bones. I'm using Seraphim Sepia here, and I'm applying this to the skull on his head and all of the bones on the staff. For the feathers, I'm using Fire Giant Orange, just to give those just a pop of colour. I'm highlighting the bones back up to ivory with some of the deck tan. I'm just looking to highlight some of the edges of the sculpt. I'm not looking to cover the whole skull again. And some Rinox hide just for the strap. Now to highlight the fur, I'm using pure white for the deck tan sections. And I'm applying that same stippling sporadic approach. And for the brown stripes, I'm using Morghast bone and that same stippling approach. I'm finishing out the bag by just brushing some grey on top. I'm using a variety of materials here for the bases. I've got these paper jungle leaves that I'm cutting out here from the stencils. And with a bit of PVA or Elmer's glue, I'm just gently applying them. Next, I'm sprinkling on some of this fall mix. And lastly, gluing in some of this lichen moss. I'm just looking for a forest floor look here. I don't want to detract too much from the Ewoks themselves. I'm finishing off the bases with some black. And lastly, just bending some of those paper leaves into position. And there you have it, Wicket and Logray ready for the table. As always, if you've enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy gaming and happy painting.